welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? I want you to take a quick second and think about a feeling we've literally all had. You know the one. You're standing on a beach, looking out at the endless ocean, or staring up at some massive mountain peak, or maybe just walking through a really quiet, ancient forest. And you can't help but wonder, where did all of this actually come from? I mean, how did our home, this incredibly complex planet, even come into existence? It's this profound, beautiful mystery, and it's captivated humanity since, well, the very beginning of human consciousness. So, we've got to ask ourselves the big one. How did all of this begin? It's a massive, awe-inspiring question, right? And when we look back through history, we see that humanity has generally tackled this question through two primary lenses. On one hand, we've got science, which explains the formation of the Earth through careful observation, hard evidence, and the study of natural processes. And on the other hand, we have religion, which explains creation through belief in God or a divine creator. Both of these frameworks, they offer absolutely profound insights into how we view our place in the universe.
Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're going to cover four main areas: the scientific explanation, the dawn of life, the religious perspectives, and finally, the difference between asking how and asking why.
Starting us off with Section 1, the scientific explanation.
According to modern science, to really wrap our heads around how the Earth formed, we have to zoom way, way out to a cosmic scale. We're talking 4.6 billion years ago. And just to put that into perspective, if you counted 1 year every single second, it would take you over 145 years just to finish counting, so it's an incredibly vast stretch of time. The scientific consensus places the actual formation of the Earth at about 4.5 billion years ago, but the whole story really kicks off at the 4.6 billion mark with something called a solar nebula, leading to the Earth forming at 4.5, and then the earliest evidence of life showing up around 3.5 billion years ago.
Let's zoom in on that very first step, 4.6 billion years ago, this solar nebula. I want you to imagine a huge swirling cloud of gas and dust just floating out there in space. According to scientists, gravity caused this massive cloud of material to essentially collapse inward, pulling everything tightly toward its own center. As all of this material came rushing together, that center became incredibly dense, and I mean extremely hot. Ultimately, this superheated center actually ignited to form our sun. But all that leftover gas and dust swirling around the young sun, well, it didn't just vanish.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer chaos of this process. You've got all these tiny particles, rock and dust orbiting the new sun, and they start colliding. They're crashing into each other, and over millions of years, they literally stick together. Think of it like a giant cosmic snowball effect. These tiny particles snowball into much larger space objects, which scientists call planetesimals. Through repeated, incredibly violent collisions and the ever-increasing pull of gravity, these planetesimals combine to form much larger planetary bodies. And one of those specific bodies? Well, that eventually became Earth.
But listen, the early Earth looked absolutely nothing like the beautiful blue and green marble we know today. It was this energetic, honestly terrifying recipe of cosmic construction. Initially, the Earth was unimaginably hot. It was just a molten surface. But after a period of intense volcanic activity, this volatile planet finally began to cool down, and a solid crust formed. Then, step 3, water began to accumulate on the surface. And get this, that water was likely delivered in part by massive, water-rich asteroids just crashing right into the planet. No way, right? Finally, as things settled, a life-sustaining atmosphere gradually developed. Which brings us to Section 2, the dawn of life. You see, forming the physical rock of the Earth was really just the prologue. Once the planet had that solid crust, the accumulating water, and a developing atmosphere, it slowly transitioned from a literal molten wasteland into a habitable environment. And this sets the stage for one of the absolute most fascinating questions in science. How did living organisms actually emerge on this newly cooled rock? Well, over billions of years, simple chemical compounds evolved into increasingly complex forms of life. Now, while the exact precise moment that life began is still a highly active area of scientific research, scientists are studying how those initial compounds could have developed into self-replicating systems. From those earliest forms dating back over 3.5 billion years, life diversified into the plants, the animals, and eventually the human beings that populate the Earth today.
Moving on to Section 3, the religious perspectives.
Where science looks at the physical mechanisms, religion approaches the origin of the earth quite differently. Instead of focusing mainly on physical processes, these traditions focus on the creator, the act of creation itself, and the deeper meaning behind our existence. In Islamic tradition, for instance, the Quran teaches, "Indeed, your Lord is Allah, who created the heavens and earth in 6 days." Here, the universe isn't viewed as just some random occurrence. It's seen as a profound sign of God's power and wisdom. And, it's really worth noting that Muslim scholars have rich, varied discussions on exactly how to interpret these specific Quranic descriptions and how they might correspond with modern scientific discoveries. Similarly, the Bible presents a deeply influential account of creation, one that's totally foundational to both Judaism and Christianity. The book of Genesis opens with what is arguably one of the most famous sentences in human history. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The text then goes on to describe God methodically bringing order to the universe, creating light, the sky, land, vegetation, the celestial bodies, animals, and then finally, humanity. But crucially, even within these distinct religious traditions, there's a really wide diversity of thought regarding how to actually understand these sacred texts. Some believers lean toward a literal interpretation. They understand the accounts in Genesis or the Quran as exact historical descriptions of how the earth was formed. Conversely, other believers embrace more of a theological or symbolic interpretation. In this view, the texts aren't really meant to be read as scientific textbooks detailing the literal physical formation of the planet. Instead, they're seen as vehicles for conveying much deeper, symbolic truths about God's relationship to creation. And that leads us into section 4, asking how versus asking why. So having looked at both the scientific timeline of billions of years and the religious narratives of divine creation, we inevitably arrive at this major philosophical crossroads. Do these two frameworks have to be in conflict? I mean, does believing in the scientific method mean you absolutely cannot hold religious beliefs, or vice versa? And this brilliantly illustrates the core difference between the two approaches, because they are fundamentally trying to answer entirely different types of questions. Science is looking at a mountain or a star and asking, how did this happen? It relies on observation, mathematics, and physical evidence to explain the mechanisms. But religion is looking at that exact same mountain or star and asking, why does existence exist at all? Who created it? What's the ultimate purpose? One is searching for the mechanism, while the other is searching for the meaning. Because they are asking completely different questions, the relationship between science and religion really depends entirely on an individual's personal, philosophical, and theological beliefs. For some people, the two seamlessly coexist, right? Science explains the physical mechanisms of the universe, while religion explains the divine source behind those mechanisms. For others, scientific explanations are entirely sufficient on their own, requiring absolutely no supernatural input to understand reality. And still, for others, certain scientific interpretations are simply rejected if they happen to contradict their religious beliefs. The big takeaway here is that there is no single, universal way that humanity reconciles the two. Ultimately, what is so endlessly fascinating is that humanity continues to confront this extraordinary mystery. We are a species completely driven by curiosity. Whether a person is out there peering through a high-powered telescope into deep space, or studying the chemical composition of ancient rocks right here on Earth, or reading the timeless words of sacred texts, we are all participating in the exact same human tradition. We are seeking truth. We're all just trying to understand our place in this vast, absolutely incredible universe. Which leaves us with this final, beautiful thought to ponder. As you go about your day, whether you're looking up at the night sky tonight or just going for a walk, remember that our very existence invites us to keep exploring. The methods we use to find the answers, sure, they might be vastly different, but the core mystery remains as captivating as ever. How did we get here? And why are we here? Thanks for exploring this with me today. Keep asking questions and keep learning.